Hey guys, tonight we wake up somewhere utterly unlike the world. You know, a Stone Age morning long before clocks, calendars, or compulsory maths lessons. The ground is uneven beneath your back, and the air carries a damp chill that seeps through the seams of your mammoth hide blanket. A faint crackle of last night's fire still hangs in the air, mixed with the earthy scent of soil smoke and something distinctly animal. You hear birds, but not the sort that chirp politely from rooftops. These ones are louder, wilder, and occasionally sound like they're mocking you. You stretch, blink away the lingering fog of sleep, and remember that there's no school bell, no uniform, and certainly no tuck shop. There's only the early sun filtering through the mist and the gentle rustle of your bandmates waking nearby. You probably won't survive this if we're being honest. But for now, you're still breathing, and your stomach is already complaining. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with where you're watching from. And the local time, it's oddly fun to know who's falling asleep in Dorset and who's dozing off in Dundee. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You nudge aside the hide and sit up slowly, blinking against the pale blue sky. Nearby, someone's baby is crying with the sort of volume that suggests they were born to survive saber-toothed tigers. A few adults are already tending to the fire, adding bundles of dry grass and blowing softly, coaxing the flames awake like a sleepy old friend. You look over at your cousin, who somehow got soot on her nose and one shoe missing. Standard morning, really. There's no morning routine as such, but there are things that need doing. And nobody really asks whether you're ready to face the day. You're expected to be ready by the virtue of being alive and not actively on fire. You glance around your little camp, a semicircle of hide tents knotted together with sinew, set up beside a slow-moving river. It's not exactly a playground, but it has everything a Stone Age child might need: rocks to climb, sticks to poke with, frogs to chase, and the ever-present threat of slipping on something profoundly unpleasant. Mainstream archaeology tells us that most Stone Age groups were small bands of 20 to 50 people, big enough for protection, small enough not to starve each other out of house and hearth. But historians still argue whether these groups stayed together permanently or just met up now and then, like distant cousins at a barbecue no one really wanted to attend. As you stretch and scratch your arm, probably not a bug bite, probably your gran hobbles, past muttering about young feet wasting sunlight. She gives your hair a light tug, a sort of prehistoric get on with it, and you take that as your cue to stumble towards the cooking fire. Breakfast is, well, ambitious. Someone's boiling what might be cattail roots. Your uncle is gnawing on a strip of dried fish that smells like regret. You're handed a wooden bowl with something green and squishy inside. It's nut porridge, apparently. You take a cautious nibble. Yep, some of the nuts are just decorative. Food isn't about flavor here. It's about not collapsing halfway through the day. There's no toast, no jam, and certainly no orange juice, unless you're very confused about what a berry is. But you eat without much complaint, because complaining gets you handed extra chores, or worse, another helping. Quirky as it sounds, some archaeologists believe kids in the Stone Age actually got the best bits of the day: less pressure to hunt, more time to play, and a front row seat to whatever chaos the adults were up to. And sure, there's danger falling in the river, stepping on something venomous, or finding out the hard way that fire is hot. But there's also a strange kind of freedom. You look around at your fellow youngsters. One's trying to throw pebbles at a squirrel, the squirrel's winning. Another's sharpening a stick with more focus than most GCSE revision sessions. And across the camp, a group of teens are arguing about who gets to carry the important rock, which may or may not actually be important. There are no classrooms, no formal learning, but your entire world is one long field trip. Everything smells, sounds, and feels like something to be figured out. You don't memorize dates, you memorize where the safe mushrooms grow and how not to anger the bees, which, by the way, is still a lesson you haven't fully mastered. And just as you're thinking, maybe it'll be a quiet morning, someone shouts. Not a panic shout, just the kind of shout that usually precedes mischief. You squint toward the trees. A wild pig is bolting through the underbrush, clearly having a worse day than you. Behind it, 3 older boys with spears, looking very pleased with themselves, and not at all concerned about what they'll do if the pig turns around. You sigh, finish your nut mush, and figure it's time to get moving. Today might be another day of helping gather firewood. Or maybe someone will let you try making twine again. Last time you got tangled and sulked for an hour. Either way, you're not going to learn by standing still. Time to trudge forward toward whatever the Stone Age equivalent of maths homework might be. You don't so much walk to breakfast as you meander into it, still chewing on the last remnants of sleep. The ground squelches slightly beneath your feet. It rained during the night, and everything is just a little too damp to be comforting. Your toes are immediately muddy, because of course they are. Footwear, when it exists at all, is a loose concept. Here, usually some attempt at hide, loosely lashed around the foot like a sad burrito. Someone waves a stick at you. It's not a threat, it's an invitation. To eat, apparently. Breakfast in the Stone Age is not a grand affair. There are no sizzling pans, no smell of coffee wafting through the air. Instead, there's smoke from the fire pit and the subtle, unambitious odor of things that have been boiled within an inch of their dignity. Today's offering is a stew-like mixture in a stone bowl passed from hand to hand with the vague hope that nobody's backwash is too contagious, the main ingredient. That's anyone's guess. Could be roots, could be tubers, might be that unfortunate toad someone mistook for a mushroom last week. You scoop up a thick beigeish dollop and chew slowly, trying not to taste too much. It's warm though, and that counts for something. Mainstream historians agree that Stone Age diets were incredibly diverse, largely because they had to be. You ate what you found, what didn't kill you last time, and what someone older swore was good for your bones. Protein came from insects, small animals, occasional fish, and anything that could be roasted over a fire until it stopped moving. Fiber came from bark roots, and whatever unfortunate leaves you mistook for lettuce. And yet historians still argue whether meals like these were mostly communal affairs, or if each family unit kept to themselves. Some say these shared pots helped form early social bonds. Others reckon it was more a matter of practicality, only so many cooking stones to go around. As you eat, a kid beside you tries to quietly trade his portion for yours. You stare him down. This is your breakfast sludge, and you've earned it. He shrugs and tries his luck with a younger sibling who is less discerning and more easily distracted by shiny stones. The adults nearby aren't exactly chatting over croissants, but there is a certain rhythm to the morning murmur half conversations about nearby deer sightings, grumbles over firewood shortages, and someone arguing that the stew would taste better with fewer ants. It wouldn't. The ants are probably the best bit. You watch as a wrinkled elder carefully crushes something in a small stone bowl. Berries, maybe, or beetles. You squint. Definitely beetles. They're being smeared on bark and passed around as a kind of pre-breakfast health paste. You politely decline. There's something comforting in a strange way about these meals. No menus, no choices, no stress. You eat what's there or you don't. And the day moves on regardless. No one asks if you liked it. That's not really the point. A fringe theory suggests that Stone Age, people occasionally fasted, sometimes by choice, often because food simply ran out. And children like you'd likely get first dibs most of the time. Not out of sentimentality, but sheer practicality. If the young don't eat, the tribe doesn't last. Basic maths, really. As you finish your morning mush, a small child runs by, holding what appears to be a beetle on a string. It's unclear if this is a pet, a prank, or lunch on a leash. He grins as he passes, covered in something that may once have been paint, or perhaps berry juice, nobody knows anymore. You help wash out your bowl in the stream, avoiding the bit where the dog drinks. Your band's dog, if you can call him that, is a lopsided creature with one ear chewed off, and the general demeanor of someone who's seen too much. He eyes your bowl, then you, then the stream. He drinks anyway. Breakfast ends, not with a bell, but with a sort of collective shrug. People start moving, stretching limbs, picking up tools, heading out to see what the forest is hiding today. You feel the day settling on your shoulders, thick as smoke, and just as inescapable. You're not expected to do much, not yet. But you're also not allowed to do nothing. So you hover, watching, waiting for someone to point at you with purpose and say something like, "Come help with the baskets," or "We need more firewood," or the ever-dreaded, "Go check the traps." And that's how you end up assigned to Berry Patrol, which is less glamorous than it sounds, and more, "Please don't eat the red ones." You and two others set off with hide slings, eyes scanning the underbrush. You've been told what to look for, what to avoid, and what will make your tongue go numb. Whether you remember any of it remains to be seen. Half an hour in, and someone's already been stung by something. You're not sure what it was, but it buzzed angrily and seemed personally offended. The sting-e is now swearing softly in a way that somehow sounds ancient and wise, while trying to pretend they're fine. They're not. You laugh a little, quietly. The kind of laugh that says, "Glad it wasn't me this time." As the morning stretches on, you find a patch of berries that are probably safe. They're not red, at least. You taste one. It's sour. The kind of sour that reaches into your soul and rearranges it a bit. Still, it's food. And you'll bring some back, proudly pretending you had to fight a badger to get them. Nobody will believe you. But they'll let you sit closer to the fire, and that's what counts. By late morning, your stomach's still making decisions it doesn't want to share with you. But you're upright fetish and holding a sling full of not deadly berries. It's not a bad start, all things considered. You trudge back into camp with your sling of slightly squashed berries, a few of which now resemble jam that's lost its will to live. Nobody rushes over to congratulate you, but you do get a nod from an older cousin which is practically an Oscar in these parts. You dump the berries into a communal bowl, wiping your hands on the least muddy bit of your tunic, which is becoming an increasingly theoretical concept. There's no time to loiter. You're barely back before someone presses a shard of flint into your hand. It's sharp, remarkably so. The kind of sharp that whispers, "I could end a toe." You're told to help with scraping a hide. No one checks if you've done it before. Presumably, they'll know if you start bleeding. Flint tools are the backbone of your world. Historians know that Stone Age children were introduced to them early flint flakes for cutting scrapers, for cleaning hides. And eventually, if you didn't slice off anything vital, maybe even a small spearhead. Making tools wasn't just an adult's job, it was everyone's job. You learned by doing, or by watching others do it wrong, and muttering to yourself about how you could do better. Today's job is simple help. Clean the inner side of a deer hide that still smells faintly of deer. You scrape alongside someone called Rook, who may be 14 or 40. It's hard to tell under all the grime. Rook hums tunelessly and gestures at your scraping technique like he's conducting a very lazy orchestra. You adjust, try again. And this time, manage to avoid flinging bits of fur into your own face. Progress. There's a strange satisfaction in the work. It's rhythmic, physical, slightly gross. But it has purpose. You're not just kept busy, you're contributing. This hide might become clothing, or a sling, or part of a tent. Or, knowing your luck, another one of those itchy sleeping mats everyone pretends are comfortable. Mainstream archaeological theory suggests that Stone Age children gradually picked up skills by participating in daily life. There were no lesson plans, no chalkboards, no stern lectures about showing your working. If you asked how something was done, you'd likely be handed the thing and told to figure it out. Apprenticeship by fire, or in your case, by slightly damp leather. Still, historians continue to argue whether there was any formal instruction at all. Some believe elders told children what not to do, mainly by example, often through scars. Others suggest that storytelling and observation were the main vehicles of knowledge. You learn quickly when not learning means you get your thumb caught in a flint napper. As the sun creeps higher, your scraping shifts into other small tasks. You're asked to check the rabbit snares, not because you're trusted, but because you're small and expendable. You set off with a sense of purpose, a stick, and vague memories of where the traps were laid yesterday. The woods are familiar, but still vaguely threatening. Every rustle feels like something watching you, judging you, or possibly preparing to nibble you. You whistle to yourself, not a tune, just noise to sound less edible. You find one snare with a small rabbit inside. It's already passed on, probably overnight. You stare at it for a moment, unsure what to feel. Then you lift the snare, carry it carefully, and remind yourself that this is food. Not just for you, but for everyone. Back at camp, your reward for successful rabbit retrieval is the chance to help clean it. You suppress a sigh. The day is turning into a series of mildly unpleasant surprises, but at least you're not the one being skinned. Cleaning a rabbit is, let's say, educational. The smell is assertive, and there's more squelch involved than you'd like. But you don't look away. You can't afford to. Because here, childhood doesn't shield you from reality. It introduces you to it with a steady hand and a mildly sarcastic shrug. While working, someone starts telling a story about the great owl that stole a baby once. You're pretty sure it's just meant to keep kids from wandering off at night. But the detail about the owl's glowing eyes is oddly specific. You make a mental note not to sleep near trees. By mid-afternoon, you're tired, itchy, and somehow still a bit hungry. Your hands smell like rabbit smoke and whatever your cousin was rolling in earlier. You're allowed a break, which you spend lying on your back, watching clouds that vaguely resemble mammoths or angry elders, and then someone hands you your very own scraping tool. It's not fancy, it's not even particularly sharp, but it's yours. You turn it over in your hand, feeling the weight of it, the not quite symmetry of a flint flake someone chipped especially for you. That's the moment it hits you. This isn't just a chore, it's training. Quiet, subtle, prehistoric training. Every scrape, every stitch, every trap you check. It's school just without the chairs or paper, or the endless lectures about Henry VIII. You close your eyes for a moment, breathing in the scent of dirt and possibility. It's not glamorous. It's not comfortable. But it's life. And today you've earned your place in it. By now your arms are a bit sore, your hands carry about 6 kinds of grime, and someone has stolen the shady sitting rock you were eyeing. Naturally, it's that kid with the wonky smile and a reputation for accidentally starting fires. You glare at him. He waves cheerfully oblivious, but you haven't got time to sulk, because today is a light chores heavy mischief kind of day. The adults have wandered off to inspect the traps, or argue about whether those clouds mean anything, which means it's time for what passes as playtime. Now, play in the Stone Age is not what you'd call health and safety approved. There are no toys made of plastic, no brightly colored mats, and definitely no one keeping a spreadsheet of who's been sharing properly. It's all mud rocks, sticks and bruises. And it's wonderful. You and the other kids drift together naturally, like bored raindrops forming a puddle. Someone suggests chase the goose, which is exactly as chaotic as it sounds, except there's no goose today. So you use a grumpy dog instead. He's not thrilled. Mainstream historians agree that play was a central part of prehistoric childhood, often physical, messy, and occasionally dangerous. It taught coordination, cooperation, and how not to cry when you fall into a bush. The games weren't just for fun. They were training simulations wrapped in laughter. And nettles. Today's most popular game seems to be a blend of tag, hide and seek, and dodge the spear. The rules change every 5 minutes. Points are awarded for things like creative hiding and good tumbling. You spend 10 minutes pretending to be a rock. It almost works. Then there's hunter and prey, which is a favorite despite the ever-present risk of someone getting accidentally poked with a spear that was only supposed to be mostly real. You volunteer to be prey. This seems like a clever idea until you're sprinting across uneven ground, trying not to slip in deer droppings, while 3 older kids chase you with enthusiastic roars. You nearly collide with a tree. You do collide with a bush. It smells terrible, and you suspect it's home to several angry insects. Still, you emerge victorious, covered in twigs, panting and alive. By Stone Age standards, that's a win. There's a pause in the games as someone needs a splinter pulled out of their foot. You all gather to watch. It's not morbid curiosity, it's educational. Besides, the splinter is alarmingly large and shaped like something that may have once been part of a mammoth sled. As the patient is patched up with spit moss and optimism, Someone suggests a quieter game, bone toss. You dig around the edge of the camp for suitable bits, tiny animal bones mostly. One kid has a shin bone that definitely doesn't belong to anything still on the menu. You toss the bones into a circle drawn in the dirt, and depending on where they land, you either win a rock or have to carry someone's firewood tomorrow. It's ridiculous. It's strangely addictive. A few of the younger kids play a gentler version, arranging pebbles in a spiral and pretending it's a sacred snail trail. One of them insists her pebble speaks, which sounds worrying, but no one argues. She's the same one who tried to marry a tree last week. Quirky behaviors. Aside fringe anthropologists have long speculated that many prehistoric games were based on imitation of the hunt of rituals, even of the odd rituals of adulthood. Some see the beginnings of religion or theater in these playful moments. Others suggest it's just what happens when kids are bored and there's an unlimited supply of rocks. But here's the thing, you're not bored. Not really. You're muddy. You're sweaty. You've definitely scraped a knee. But you're engaged, present, completely immersed in a world where pretend danger feels just enough, like real danger to be exciting, but not enough to panic the elders. Mostly. There's also a certain kind of bonding that happens in these games. The kind forged by shared jokes, mutual near injuries, and the experience of losing to someone who definitely cheated. You and your cousin keep ending up on the same team, mostly because you've worked out a system of silent signals that may or may not involve exaggerated eyebrow waggles. At one point, you take a break and flop down beside her, both of you breathing hard. She hands you a slightly squashed berry she's been saving. You accept it like it's treasure. It tastes like dirt and kindness. You're starting to feel the ache of the day settle into your limbs. But just before you fully relax, someone shouts, "Tree race!" and the entire group of children erupts into motion. The goal touch the farthest tree near the river and run back before anyone else. The prize glory, and possibly the good seat by the fire tonight. You run, feet pounding the earth breath, wheezing in and out, arms flailing slightly more than necessary. Your heart drums in your chest, not from fear, but from the sheer thrill of it. This is what play feels like before rules, before supervision, before branded trainers and organized sports. It's raw, wild, completely pointless. And it's perfect. You don't win, but you don't come last, which is crucial. The kid who comes last has to collect firewood with Rook tomorrow, and Rook likes to lecture about moss for hours. Back in camp, everyone collapses in a heap, limbs tangled laughter echoing through the clearing. Someone passes around a handful of nuts. You're too tired to chew properly, so you just suck on one and pretend it's soup. As the sun begins its lazy descent, you feel the warm fuzz of exhaustion set in. Your body hurts in new places. Your brain is happily numb. You've learned something today: how to chase, how to dodge, how to lose without sulking, and how to find joy in a piece of bark shaped vaguely like a bear. You lie back in the grass, watching the sky soften. And just for a moment, you let yourself pretend that all the clouds are animals, and that none of them are watching you back. The sky's turning that dusty shade of late afternoon, when the light's gold, but the shadows start to stretch their legs a bit. You lie there a while longer, not quite ready to move, feeling your breath slow, as the thrill of the games drains gently from your limbs. But rest doesn't last long in a world where chores and learning blend together like stew in a communal pot. Someone nudges you with a toe gently but persistently. It's your aunt, the one with the eagle eyes and calloused hands. She jerks her head toward the fire and says, "Time you watched. Something useful." You follow her to a flat stone where her hair lies recently skinned, waiting to be prepared. She doesn't say much, just hands you a sharpened flake and makes a slicing motion. It's your cue to start copying her movements, whether or not you fully understand what's about to happen. You sit down, cross-leg the flint cold in your hand, and watch as she begins carving with the fluid grace of someone who's done this 1,000 times. This is how you learn things here, not through words, but through watching, mimicking, and occasionally being swatted gently on the back of the head when you mess it up. Nobody's handing out gold stars. Nobody's writing anything down. You sit close, stay quiet, and pay attention. The hair's meat is being carefully divided, not wasted, not rushed. Even the bones are collected, destined for some future purpose, tools, needles, or possibly another game of bone toss. Historians still argue whether Stone Age societies passed down knowledge with any formal structure at all. Was there such a thing as a teacher? Or was it more like what you're doing now, absorption, through osmosis, learning, through daily repetition? The answer is probably somewhere in the middle, structured in its own way but flexible. Nothing like sitting in rows reciting facts. More like learning a dance you're expected to join halfway through. You make your first cut. It's not pretty. You go a bit too deep. Your aunt clucks softly, not annoyed, just amused. She takes your hand, repositions the flake, and says, like slicing bark, not bone. You nod, though you've never successfully sliced bark either. Still, the second try is better. Not great, but better. There's a quiet intensity to this kind of learning. You're not just copying, you're absorbing. The angle of the flint, the way she braces the carcass with her knee, the rhythm of her breath as she works. It's a kind of knowledge that doesn't come with a test. You either learn it and survive, or you don't, and become the cautionary tale. The smoke from the fire curls lazily between you. You blink as a puff catches your eyes. A few other children gather nearby, some pretending not to watch, others clearly fascinated. Your aunt talks more now, naming the parts of the hair, muttering what each bit's for. This is sweet meat, good for winter drying. This tendon, strong, makes good thread. She lets you touch, feel the difference in texture. Understand why some bits are prized more than others. It's not glamorous, and it's definitely not clean. But it's real. It's what life is made of out here, not just surviving, but preparing, storing, using every part. Nothing's wasted, not even the knowledge. At some point, your cousin joins you with a bundle of dried grass and starts braiding it into cord. She doesn't say anything either, but her hands move with mechanical certainty. You watch for a minute, and she catches your eye, holds the grass out toward you. Your turn. The first knot you tie is pitiful. It falls apart instantly. The second somehow ties itself into your own sleeve. The third, well, it holds slightly. Your cousin raises one eyebrow, a silent, not terrible. It's basically a compliment, quirky tidbit for the evening. Some fringe archaeologists believe certain Stone Age crafts, cord making, weaving, even flint knapping, were sometimes treated almost ritualistically, passed down from particular family lines with special materials or chants whispered under breath. Is that true? Hard to say. But when your cousin hums softly As she braids in a rhythm that matches her fingers, you wonder, even in a world without schools, without books, without chalk, there's structure here, there's patience, there's a belief that if you're old enough to sit still and not poke yourself in the eye, you're old enough to start learning. Slowly, gently, piece by piece. Your chord isn't great, but it's improving. Your hair slices are jagged but not disastrous. You're learning more from an afternoon of silence and hands-on practice than you ever did from listening to a bored adult drone on about the Romans and their roads. No offense to Roman roads, but they never taught you how to make rabbit stew. The sun dips lower. Someone tosses a fresh log onto the fire, and the sparks leap up like startled insects. The warmth is welcome. You stretch your fingers, which are sore from clutching flint and grass. Your aunt pats your shoulder. No words, just the solid thump of approval. You stand slowly brushing dirt from your knees and glance back at the tools, the half-prepared meat, the beginnings of your first real chord. It's not much, but it's yours. And in a world without certificates or diplomas, these small victories are what count. Learning here isn't a chore. It's a privilege. It's a quiet whisper that says, you belong. You're becoming useful. And deep down, as you walk back towards the fire's glow, you feel something settle. A little piece of pride. A little more knowledge tucked under your belt, alongside your knife, and that pebble you keep for luck. You don't know everything yet, not even close. But today you learned something without being told. And tomorrow, maybe you'll do it better. Evenings fall in with that soft hush that seems to stretch time. The fire's crackling steadily now, and the air smells like smoke, rabbit fat, and something herbal your gran threw on the flames for the spirits. You're not entirely sure if she meant that literally, or if she's just trying to keep mosquitoes away. Either way, the smoke curls in lazy tendrils through the dusk, wrapping the camp in a warm, flickering haze. You settle down beside a log, trying not to sit on anything bitey. Your cousin flops beside you, sighs loudly, and immediately starts picking leaves out of her hair. Across the fire, someone's sharpening a stone tool with slow, practiced scrapes that sound like a sleepy cricket dragging its legs. That's when you feel it. The quiet lull that always creeps in once the work's done and the shadows get long. And with it, the question that's been nudging at you for a while. What does it mean to have a friend here? There's no classroom cliques, no playground hierarchies. You don't have a BFF bracelet or shared TikToks or a sworn pact made during Year 7 art class. You have whoever's still alive and roughly your age. And sometimes that's enough. Friendship in the Stone Age is simple, but layered. You trust the one who helped pull thorns from your foot, the one who warned you about the wasp's nest, even though you still poked it, the one who didn't laugh when you cried after losing that bone you'd carved a face into. Well, didn't laugh much. Historians generally agree that social bonds in prehistoric groups were tight. In a band of 30 or so people, everyone matters. And child friendships weren't frivolous. They were survival bonds in the making. You're not just building playmates. You're building future hunting partners, co-parents, co-conspirators in berry theft. That dog that keeps hanging around, the one with the odd ear and lopsided trot. That's part of your circle too. Dogs were likely first domesticated around this time, or slightly later, depending on which stone tool layer you're arguing about. But there's strong evidence that early humans formed bonds with them long before anyone started breeding them for fluffiness. Your dog may be more semi-feral wolf who likes your leftovers, but still, he's loyal in his own begrudging way. And then there's the crow. You're not sure if it's your friend exactly, but it seems to show up whenever you drop food, and it squawks at you in a way that feels oddly familiar. It once stole a bit of your hide wrapping while you were bathing, then dropped it back 2 days later, covered in moss and mysterious stains. A fringe theory, usually dismissed with raised eyebrows, suggests that some prehistoric children may have tamed or at least tolerated birds. Evidence is sketchy, mostly circumstantial, but you're starting to believe it. This crow is definitely up to something. Friendship here doesn't involve secrets whispered under duvets or pinky promises. It's built through shared danger, shared mischief, and the unspoken understanding that if either of you falls in the river again, the other will probably laugh first, then help. Probably. You and your cousin, you're tight, not in the way city kids talk about best mates, but in a deeper, quieter way. You've patched each other's cuts with moss. You've shared food, even when there wasn't much. You've fought once, maybe twice, but the kind of fight where no one remembers what it was about after the second punch, and you end up laughing at someone's muddy trousers. You glance over now, and she's dozing, lightly chin tucked, down arms crossed, in that way she does when she's pretending not to fall asleep. The firelight paints her face gold and shadow. You feel a small bubble of affection rise, one of those strange sudden swells of gratitude that's hard to explain. You're glad she's here, that she exists, that you have someone to grunt at when the elders get too weird. A bit further off, the slightly odd Kid Sen, with the enormous hair and the habit of collecting beetles, is sitting alone, poking at a flat rock with what looks like intense purpose. He's been making small piles of different colored stones all week. You asked once what they were for, and he just said, rain. You nodded as if that made sense. Every camp has one. The fringe dweller, the not quite like the rest. But in a group, this small exclusion isn't really an option. He's still part of your world, and when he found that bird's skull in the river, you all gathered around and told ghost stories until someone wet themselves. Possibly you. Even the elders have their own strange bonds. Your gran and the toothless old man from the next clearing over have some long-standing competition involving fish bones and riddles. You don't understand the rules. No one does. But it seems important. There's something freeing about all this. No reputations to keep up. No social media to curate. Just people, messy, muddy, tired, loud, hilarious people, bound together by need and proximity, and maybe just maybe affection. As the fire crackles and the stars blink gently into place, someone starts humming a low, wordless tune. Not your cousin, not your aunt, not even your gran, just someone across the circle. And soon another joins in. It's not a performance, just sound. Comforting rhythmic, like the wind rustling through tall grass. You lean back on your elbows, watching the flames flicker and dance. The crow is perched nearby, eyeing you like it's judging your posture. The dog sighs and flops down beside you, his tail thumping once in sleepy approval. You think about what it means to have a friend. Not just someone to play with, but someone to grow up beside. Someone who remembers the same stories, who saw the same stars on the same nights. Someone who knows your favorite hiding spot, and has never ratted you out. Yet, you close your eyes just for a moment. The world smells like ash fur and old grass, and the people in it, strange, smelly, loud, loyal, feel like home. Morning again. You wake to the sound of something snorting outside your shelter. Could be the dog, could be your uncle, could be something with more teeth than both. You lie still, nose tucked under your fur blanket, trying to decide whether it's worth opening your eyes. Eventually, the snorting fades. You poke your head out and blink into the half-light. Dew clings to everything, grass rocks your hair. Someone's already stoking the fire, muttering about damp wood and ghosts. You rub your arms and shiver slightly. Another day begins, and with it, another chance to narrowly avoid being eaten. Today you've been told you're free to play again as long as you don't bother. The elders fall into the river or lose the dog. You nod solemnly, already planning to do at least one of those things. You and a small group wander into the forest edge, the kind of not too far distance that feels adventurous, but still smells faintly like home fire. It's cool under the trees, quiet except for the occasional bird call and the ever-present buzz of something winged that wants your blood. You walk carefully, listening for movement eyes, scanning the underbrush for anything interesting or dangerous. The forest is both playground and predator. It's beautiful, sure, but it's also alive in that twitchy, watchful way. You know the rules here: don't run, unless something's chasing. You don't touch mushrooms with spots, and always carry a stick. Not because the stick will help much, but it gives you something to wave if things get hairy. Today's game is a version of hide and seek, but with stakes. One kid plays the wolf. The rest scatter and hide. If the wolf finds you, you're caught, and the next wolf. Simple. Except the woods are big and shadows shift quickly, and sometimes you forget what's a game and what's not. You crouch behind a fallen log, breath held trying not to sneeze as some plant tickles your ear. You listen for footsteps, for the crunch of leaves. And then you hear it, a snap of twigs that doesn't sound playful. Something heavier, slower. You freeze, every part of you alert. That's not one of your friends. There are plenty of animals in these woods. Most avoid humans, but not all. Wolves are a real danger, especially if you stumble across a den. Bears rare, but they exist. Wild boars, always angry. Historians still argue whether children face these threats regularly, or if most knowledge of danger came through exaggerated stories. But you know, what you hear now isn't a squirrel. You wait, heart pounding, gripping your stick like it's Excalibur. The sound moves away slowly, heavily. Maybe a deer, maybe something else. You'll never know. But it reminds you, play here isn't pretend. The risks are real, even if you laugh after. You find your way back to the group a little too quickly, brushing leaves from your hair casually, not mentioning the noise. Someone teases you for being caught too easily. You just grin and accept your new role as wolf. No point in arguing. As you chase the others through the trees, you catch glimpses of them, darting behind rocks, ducking into hollows, giggling. You see the landscape through new eyes. Each crevice a hiding place, each tree a sentinel. You begin to understand how hunters think, how prey feels. It's thrilling, it's unnerving. It's education via adrenaline. A few scrapes, a twisted ankle, and one dramatic tumble into a bramble patch. Later you all limp back toward camp. No major injuries, No real wolves, just a few suspiciously long claw marks on a tree that nobody mentions too loudly. Fringe scholars have floated the idea that Stone Age children developed early danger instincts through these kinds of unsupervised forest wanderings. Not just physical skills, but emotional resilience, learning to handle fear without panic, to assess risk without freezing. You're starting to think they're onto something. Back in camp, the elders don't ask where you've been. They glance at the scratches, the muddied feet, the torn sleeve, and nod slightly. You've learned something today. That's enough. You and your cousin compare scrapes like medals. She's got a good one on her shin. You've got a respectable gash across your elbow. She also found a feather that might be from a hawk or might be from that unfortunate goose someone stepped on last month. Either way, it's hers now, and she's wearing it proudly in her hair like royalty. You sit by the fire, chewing on a strip of dried meat, your hands still shaking faintly from the forest rush. You're not hurt. Not really. But you're a little changed. A little wiser. A little more wary. Your gran wanders past and mutters something about spirits in the trees today. You don't know if she's joking. You hope she is. Later, as the stars begin to peek through the canopy and the firelight softens, someone asks if anyone saw the forest shape. There's some muttering, some scoffing, but also some nervous glances. Was there really something watching you? Or just the echo of fear stretching itself into story? Either way, you lie a little closer to the fire that night, and you keep your stick nearby. The fire tonight is particularly lively, crackling and popping like it's got secrets to share. You sit close, knees hugged to your chest, the warmth reaching your fingers, and the soles of your feet still damp from the riverbank. Around you, people are settling into that quiet end-of-day lull, stretching, yawning, chewing lazily on the last of the stew. A couple of kids are poking at embers with sticks, trying to make smoke animals. One of them claims they saw a deer's face in the sparks earlier. You squint, see nothing, and nod sagely. The air smells of wood smoke, wet leaves, and something just faintly burnt, but not in a bad way. It's the scent of evening settling in. And that can only mean one thing: story time. It begins without warning. Your gran clears her throat, loudly, pointedly, and all the muttering around the fire softens. She leans forward slightly, gaze fixed not on anyone, but on the middle distance where stories live. You straighten up. You've heard this one before. But that never matters. Each telling is a little different, a little darker, a little funnier, or sometimes a little closer to home. She begins a tale of the long ago, before the rivers found their names and the stars had agreed on their places. A boy, always a boy, though sometimes it's a girl or a clever fox, challenges the spirit of the woods, not out of bravery, but sheer stupidity. You chuckle. You know this kind of boy. You may have been him earlier this week. The boy enters the forest at night, something nobody does, unless they're cursed or chasing something they shouldn't. He hears voices but doesn't turn back. He finds a glowing stone which whispers his true name. He brings it home only to find he no longer belongs there. You've heard this story twisted a dozen different ways. Sometimes the stone grants power. Sometimes it eats the boy whole. Once memorably, it turned out to be a very judgmental badger. But the point is always the same. Respect the woods, and don't go looking for truths you're not ready to carry. Mainstream historians agree that storytelling around the fire was essential to prehistoric life. It passed on knowledge, sure where to hunt, what to avoid, which mushrooms will turn your insides to soup. But it also created cohesion, identity, a shared sense of us. These tales were memory, wrapped in myth, science, coated in metaphor, and when the elders were in the mood, thinly veiled jabs at other family members. Case in point, tonight's tale ends with the boy being rescued by the wisest elder in the band, who looks suspiciously like your grand's rival from 3 tents down. There's a pause, a grin, and a round of pointed chuckling. You glance over. He's shaking his head and muttering, but not denying it. Your grand stories don't always follow logic. Sometimes they contradict each other. Sometimes they veer off into jokes about flatulence and ghostly goats. But always they hold the group in a spell, a gentle one full of shared breath and slow smiles. Tonight's story shifts into another and another. A woman who turned into mist to escape marriage, a bird who stole the sun, a warrior who tricked a cave bear by pretending to be asleep and who then overslept and missed the bear entirely. You find yourself drifting the firelight, dancing across your eyelids. Someone nearby is chewing on a bone too loudly. Someone else is asleep, already snoring faintly through their nose. And beside you, your cousin whispers a commentary into your ear. She made that part up. The bear wasn't even in the last version. You nod amused. You wonder if anyone keeps track of these tales. Probably not. They live in the telling, not the remembering. And anyway, historians still argue whether such stories were memorized or improvised on the spot. Some think they were sacred recitations. Others believe the storyteller had full license to riff like a prehistoric jazz musician. Your gran, definitely the latter. A quirky detail you love, she sometimes adds new animals that absolutely don't exist. Last week, she introduced the four-eyed otterhawk, a creature who guards sacred stones and smells like damp leaves and vinegar. You asked if it was real, and she just said, "Ask the river." That didn't help. But even the silliest stories carry weight. They shape the way you think about the world. The river becomes a boundary, not just of geography, but of memory. The forest becomes a place of both danger and deep truth. And the fire, always the fire, becomes the heart of it all. The safe center where imagination grows legs and walks. You shift closer to the flames as the story turns toward the stars. How they came to be. How one fell and became a child who grew up with bones that glowed in the dark. Your gran pauses dramatically, and someone lets out a theatrical gasp. It's the wrong moment, but everyone laughs anyway. Later, long after the stories blur into one long breath of myth and memory, the fire dies down. You're half asleep, your head on someone's knee, your fingers tangled in a bit of discarded cord, and in the corner of your eye, you think you see the crow watching. Not menacingly, not quite, just waiting, maybe for the next story. The sun's barely up. When you're nudged awake by a toe to the ribs, it's not unkind, just firm. Your cousin's already on her feet, hair wild eyes bleary, clutching a half-eaten chunk of something fibrous that may or may not be yesterday's breakfast. You sit up slowly, groaning, stretching, brushing away bits of fur and leaf stuck to your tunic. Today's a moving day. The camp is backing up. Baskets are being tied, hides, rolled tools, wrapped in grass bundles, and slung over shoulders. People move with quiet focus, like they've done this 100 times before. Because they have. These seasonal migrations are part of life, part of rhythm, as familiar as sleep and smoke and sore feet. You're going to the high pastures, where the deer move through in summer, where berries grow fat and sweet, and where the bugs are somehow even more ambitious. Mainstream archaeological evidence suggests that many Stone Age bands followed migratory patterns, moving with herds' seasons and ripening plants. It wasn't aimless wandering, it was instinctively timed precision, though historians still argue whether these moves were strictly scheduled or more reactive, triggered by changing conditions, animal signs, or the increasing smell of one's neighbors. You're excited, of course. It's like a school trip. If school trips involved carrying everything you own and pooping behind ferns, you gather your things, your scraping tool, a pouch with 3 whole berries you didn't eat yesterday, and the stone your cousin swears glows in the moonlight. It doesn't, but you don't want to hurt her feelings. Before leaving, your gran gives a farewell grumble. To the fire pit, mutters something about leaving the spirits a gift, and tosses in a handful of what might be dried fish, or bark, or both. Then she shoulders her basket like a warrior queen and starts walking. You join the procession. It's not a march exactly, more a shuffle, a winding trail of barefooted, slightly grubby figures following a path only half visible, remembered more by foot than by eye. The dog trots ahead like he's been promoted. The crow flaps by overhead, then perches on a tree and watches as if taking attendance. The forest opens slowly into higher ground. The trees thin, the air smells clearer, less wet moss, more sun-baked grass, and distant pollen. Your cousin grabs your hand and points. Look, antelope tracks. You nod sagely, as if you spotted them too. Travel days are long. There's no rush, but there's also no stopping unless someone dramatically injures themselves, or the gran decides her knee needs a rest. You walk, you snack, you whine quietly, and eventually someone tells a joke that makes half the group snort and the other half pretend they didn't laugh. At one point, you cross a shallow stream. The water's cold, the rocks sharp, and your feet complain. Someone slips and sits down suddenly, which causes much pointing and absolutely no help. They emerge soaked, looking like a seaweed sculpture, and get awarded today's best splash by general consensus. By midday, the sun is high and unkind. You're sweating. Your feet are throbbing. You're fairly certain your cousin has eaten all the good dried meat. You sit on a flat rock and sulk dramatically until someone tosses you a berry. It's squashed but sweet. And then suddenly, the land opens. The trees fall away like curtains parting. Before you, hills, rolling in lazy waves, grass high enough to hide a child dotted with stones that look suspiciously like teeth. A stream cuts through it all, like silver ribbon. It's beautiful in a wild, slightly haunted way. You've made it to the high pastures. There's no fanfare. No, we're here announcement. Just a subtle shift in energy as baskets are dropped and glances exchanged. People begin setting up camp tents, unfurled stones rolled into place, firewood scouted. It's all done quietly, efficiently, like a dance everyone knows by heart. You help gather branches. Your cousin finds a beetle and insists it's sacred. You nod. It's easier. As the new camp takes shape, someone starts humming. Others join in softly. The same song from a few nights ago, reshaped by wind and movement. You catch yourself swaying with it as you tie a hide into place, the rhythm lulling you into calm. Quirky tidbit for the day. Some fringe theorists suggest these journeys were accompanied by rituals, songs, dances, or rock placements that helped groups remember their paths. Navigating by memory, not map. Stories stored in landmarks. The idea makes sense when you pass a tree bent like an old man's back, and your grandmother's still moaning, "Are you to it?" You suspect she means the tree. By evening, the camp is mostly rebuilt. Fires are lit, water fetched a few brave souls. Try to chase off bugs with smoke and bad language. You sit on a new rock, stare out at the hills, and think about how far you walked, how far you've come. This trip, this seasonal wandering, isn't a break from life. It is life. It's school, home, holiday, and work all folded into one meandering journey. And somehow, despite the sweat and bites and mystery meat, you feel more awake, more alive. You lie back in the grass, letting it cradle your spine. Overhead, the crow circles once, then glides down to perch beside you. It tilts its head, judging as always. You reach out. It hops just out of reach. Of course, the stars begin to flicker. The air cools, and the hills whisper promises of things yet unseen, tracks, trails, and maybe, just maybe, a four-eyed otterhawk hiding behind a stone. Your new camp is mostly settled by morning, though not without a few minor crises. Someone's tent keeps collapsing because they try to use a curved stick for the aesthetic, and the dog has stolen someone's drying sock, which is now hanging from a bush like a small flag of surrender. You're up early because the sun here wakes you with a vengeance. No trees to block it, no tents thick enough to soften it. Just cold light in your face and the familiar aroma of damp hide, morning breath, and optimism. Today, you're told, is for crafting. There's no specific list of assignments. No one's handing out projects or marking you on technique. You just pick something and start. And you want to make something that's yours. Something useful, maybe, or fun, or at the very least, not dangerous. You start with a stick. Because, well, everyone starts with a stick. You pick a good one, straight-ish. Try no visible bugs, and begin to whittle with a flint edge. Slowly, carefully, very, very slowly. Because last time you tried this, you slipped and nearly gave your cousin an unscheduled haircut. She still brings it up. Stone Age children. Historians believe crafted their own basic tools and toys, miniature versions of adult gear, or whimsical little items that doubled as distraction and practice. Dolls made of straw and string, clay animals with faces only a mother could love, sleds carved from bark, and yes, pointy sticks that might, depending on the mood, become either a toy spear or an unfortunately effective weapon. Your stick starts to take shape. You've decided it's a spear, a small one, more ceremonial than functional. Or at least that's what you'll claim if it breaks the first time you throw it. Nearby, your cousin's making a sling out of braided grass. She's got the dexterity of a spider on espresso fingers, moving so fast you can't follow. She says it's for throwing pebbles. You suspect it's for throwing pebbles at you. You both sit in the sun, working side by side, flicking bits of bark at each other, and arguing about whether tying feathers to the end of your stick makes it magic. You say yes. She says no, but does it anyway. Crafting isn't just for play. It's a way of learning the logic of the world, how materials bend or break, how shapes change strength, how your own hands can turn forest into function. There's no school but this. This is a kind of education more honest than any textbook. Someone brings over a lump of clay and starts sculpting a small animal. Maybe a bison, maybe a toad, maybe a very unflattering self-portrait. You join in making something that resembles a bird, if the bird had recently been flattened by a mammoth. You give it a little face. It looks perpetually surprised. A mood. Quirky archaeological finds tell us that children's fingerprints have been preserved in clay objects over 20,000 years old, suggesting they were actively involved in making pottery and figurines. It's oddly comforting to know that ancient kids were also sculpting dubious animals and poking things to see what happens. By midday, your hands are sore and your stick spear has been ceremonially named Pointy. You've tied feathers to it. It looks magnificent and completely impractical, but it's yours. Your cousin has managed to hit a moving beetle with her sling. Everyone cheers. The beetle is not invited back. After lunch, a charming mixture of dried meat, bitter roots, and whatever that moss was, you try making a toy. Something less dangerous. You gather a few smooth stones, some string, a hollow bit of bark. After an hour, you've created something that makes a satisfying whirring noise when spun overhead. It's useless, noisy, and deeply satisfying. The dog hates it. Craft time isn't just about objects. It's also about pride. You're contributing, creating, not just a passive part of the group, but an inventor. A small-scale engineer of nonsense and necessity. Your gran comes over eyes. Your spear tilts her head and says, "Try not to poke yourself in the ear with it." That's basically praise. Later, someone brings out red ochre, the good stuff, ground into powder and mixed with spit or animal fat, depending on the level of commitment. You're allowed to smear a bit on your hands, then make a print on the inside of your tent flap. Your mark. A symbol that says, "I was here. I did something today." And also I found a cool rock. Fringe researchers have suggested that some of these marks were early forms of identity expression, personal symbols that predate writing. Others think they were just the prehistoric equivalent of graffiti "Og was here." You don't mind either way. It feels nice. As the sun begins to dip, the camp is full of new creations, painted stones, carved sticks, slightly terrifying clay faces, and at least one accidental flute. Someone poked too many holes in a bone. Laughter is easy here, quiet but frequent. No one's judging. You're all learning, exploring, failing gloriously. Your hands are red with ochre, your clothes streaked with sap, your hair full of grass. You lie back on the soft earth and hold up your spear, admiring the wobble in the shaft, the crooked feather, the way it catches the light like something important. You don't need a classroom to feel proud, just a good stick, a sharp edge, and a bit of time, and possibly a beetle to throw things at. It starts with a sneeze. Not a dainty little sniffle, but a great honking blast that echoes through the camp and causes a nearby child to drop their freshly carved stick in alarm. You sit there for a moment, blinking. Your nose tingles, your eyes water, and your cousin gives you a wide berth like you've just turned green. Congratulations, you're sick. Of course, in the Stone Age, sick isn't a neat little word with tissues and tea. It's a vague cloud of discomfort that might mean you're fine in 2 days, or about to become a cautionary tale. The line is thin, and the stakes are high. You're bundled into a fur-lined mat and told to stay warm, which given your fever feels less like care and more like slow cooking. Someone brings you a drink made from boiled bark. It tastes like despair. You sip it anyway because that's what you do. When an elder hovers and says, "It'll draw out the evil," whether evil refers to spirits or bacteria is left to the imagination. Historians agree that Stone Age people had some knowledge of medicine plants that soothed pain roots, that dulled fevers, smokes, and poultices that kept infections at bay. But they also relied heavily on ritual chants, gestures, and the strategic application of mud. And yes, historians still argue whether those practices were spiritual symbolic or just the prehistoric version of worth a try. Your gran sits beside you, muttering something rhythmic under her breath, while crushing a handful of herbs against a flat stone. She dabs some of the paste onto your forehead. It's cool and sticky. You pretend not to flinch. She nods approvingly and says, "You'll sweat out the snake." You nod back. It's unclear whether she means that literally. The camp reacts to your illness with a mix of concern and practicality. No one panics. No one isolates you. They just shift around you, bringing water, checking your breath, muttering about wind direction. You're sick, not banished, but you are watched. The worst part isn't the fever, though. That's no picnic. It's the boredom. You're used to days filled with sticks and shouting and tripping over roots. Now you lie on your side, watching ants navigate your sleeping mat, occasionally hallucinating shapes in the smoke. At one point, someone brings you a stone. A good one, smooth and flat, painted with a red spiral. It's to scare the bad inside you, they say. You clutch it like a talisman. It helps somehow. Your cousin visits in short bursts, sitting a few paces away and throwing you updates. Brooke fell in the river again. The dog ate someone's paintbrush. Sen says your sweat smells like prophecy. You manage a laugh, then cough so hard you see stars. You're not alone. Another child, smaller, quiet, has also come down with something. They lie nearby, curled under a hide eyes, classy but awake. You share a nod. The kind of nod that says, "This is awful, but at least we're not the only ones sweating out snakes." One of the adults comes by and gives you a bit of honey. Actual honey from real bees. It's so sweet it makes your teeth ache, but it coats your throat in warm gold. You feel briefly immortal, a fringe theory you once overheard from a wandering elder suggested that Stone Age people believed illness was a kind of test, not just for the body, but the soul. You don't know about that, but it does feel like you're being smelted, broken down, reforged. You dream strange things. A bear with your gran's voice, a river that talks, a cave where all your old toys whisper secrets about fire. You wake sweating, then cold, then too warm again. Someone wipes your face with a damp cloth. The crow lands nearby, tilts its head, then leaves. You choose to believe it's a good omen. After a day and a half, the fever breaks. You wake up feeling not great, but upright. You sit, you breathe. You don't immediately fall over. Progress. The elder checks your eyes, pokes your ribs, grunts. "You'll live," she says. You nod. You're not entirely sure you want to move, but you're grateful. And hungry. So hungry. They feed you broth. It's thin but warm. Your cousin steals a chunk of meat from someone else's bowl and sneaks it to you. You eat it like it's treasure. You're not fully better, but you're on the other side. The side where your hands stop shaking and your dreams quiet down. Where the world doesn't blur at the edges. Where the air smells like grass again, not just heat. And in a quiet moment, lying on your back, you think about how fragile and strong you are. How a bit of bark tea, a painted stone, and a grandmother's mumbling helped pull you back from the brink. There's no doctor's note, no follow-up appointment. But when someone asks you to carry a basket of wood later that afternoon, you do. Slowly, proudly, because today you're not just surviving, you're healing. It begins with a beetle, a very shiny, very determined beetle trundling its way across a sun-warmed stone just outside camp. You squat to watch it, fascinated by how purposeful it seems, like it knows exactly where it's going and why. And because you're still riding that post-illness wave of cautious curiosity, you decide quite sensibly, you think to follow it. Just for a little while, you trail the beetle through the grass, over a dip in the hillside, past a pile of suspiciously well-arranged stones that might be someone's failed shelter attempt. And then, somewhere between, I'll turn back soon. And where'd the beetle go? You realize you've lost sight of the camp. And more concerningly, you've completely forgotten which direction it was in. You stand very still. The wind shifts the grass. There's birdsong. The sun is up. Possibly east or west. You're not sure anymore. You turn in a slow circle, trying to find a familiar landmark. A tree, a stone, your cousin's loud complaining voice. Nothing. You're lost. Now, it's worth noting that in the Stone Age, getting lost wasn't a charming anecdote. It was a serious problem. A will you find your way back before something finds you sort of situation. Historians agree that wayfinding was a vital skill passed down through watching, walking, and relentless repetition. But historians also admit, somewhat sheepishly, that even the most knowledgeable forager could take a wrong turn, especially if they were distracted by a beetle. You take a deep breath and remember what you've been taught. Look for the sun. Check the moss on tree trunks. Listen for water. Try not to cry. You climb the nearest hillock, hoping to spot the camp from above. No luck. But you do see the distant glimmer of a stream curling like a lazy snake through the valley below. Water means people, or at least not dehydration. So you head that way, walking carefully, whispering a half-serious apology to the beetle for getting you into this mess. Along the way, you pass through patches of flowers, thick tangles of brambles, and once, very briefly, the distinct smell of something large and carnivorous. You don't stop to investigate. You reach the stream, kneel, and drink with cupped hands. The water is cold and tastes faintly of pebbles and relief. You splash your face. It helps. There's no panic yet. Just a steady thrum of anxiety, like a distant drumbeat in your chest. You start walking along the water's edge, scanning for footprints, fire, smoke, anything. You hum softly to yourself. Not a song, really just noise to keep the forest company. And then you hear it, a rustle. Not bird, not squirrel. Bigger. You freeze. A deer steps into view upstream, long-legged and graceful, ears twitching. It looks at you, blinks, then continues drinking, utterly uninterested. You breathe again. Just a deer. But it reminds you how not alone you really are. This land is full of eyes, of sounds, of lives, layered one atop the other. Some fringe theories say that getting lost in prehistoric times could be a kind of rite of passage. That moments like this, when you're on your own, unsure, stretched thin, helped forge not just skill, but identity. You're not sure if that's true, but you do feel different, sharper, more aware of your breathing, your steps, the way your shadow leans across the grass. Eventually, you find a trail, faint but deliberate. Flattened grasses, a snapped twig, and miracle of miracles, a familiar footprint. Possibly yours, possibly your cousin's. You follow it, heart ticking faster. It leads uphill toward a cluster of trees that look vaguely familiar. One leans like a tired dancer. Another has a knot shaped like a snarling face. You know these trees. You've passed them before. You run the last few steps, stumble into the clearing, and there's the camp. You don't cheer. That would draw attention. You stroll in, casually brushing twigs from your shoulders, casually grabbing a basket, as if you'd just stepped out for a thoughtful walk. No one questions you except your cousin, who raises an eyebrow and says, "You smell like bannock?" You shrug. "You smell like beetle?" You reply. Later that evening, you lie beside the fire, listening to someone retell the story of the boy who chased a spirit into the hills and had to find his way home by following his own dreams. You smile quietly. It feels personal now, and you think, maybe that's the point, because sometimes getting lost is the best way to understand where you are. It starts, as most things do, with something a bit odd. You're sitting near the fire, casually gnawing on a root that tastes like it was once considered food when he walks past. Sen, the kid who always smells faintly of mushrooms and damp bark. He's dragging a bundle of sticks behind him, muttering to himself in a rhythm that suggests either deep focus or an elaborate personal insult. You don't dislike Sen. He's just different. While most of you were learning to scrape hides and throw sticks at squirrels, Sen was arranging pebbles in strange spirals. While others perfected their slingshots, he was experimenting with smoke patterns and whispering to tree stumps. And that time, he tried to make shoes out of fish skin. Nobody's forgotten the smell. Every group has one the weird kid, the one who says things that don't make sense until they do, or never do but sound profound anyway. Fringe anthropologists love this kind of child. They speculate with great enthusiasm that such kids might have been early shamans in training, proto-druids, or simply future storytellers who hadn't yet learned to make eye contact. You and your cousin trail behind him, curious. He doesn't say anything, but he doesn't tell you to go away either. You watch as he reaches a clearing and begins laying the sticks out in a pattern, carefully spaced, radiating out from a central stone. It looks like something. You're not sure what. "What's it for?" your cousin asks. Sen shrugs. "Dreamcatcher." You glance at each other. "What's it catch?" He looks at you like it's obvious. "Bad ones." Of course. He finishes his arrangement, then sits cross-legged, palms up, eyes closed. He hums, not a tune, but a low vibrating sound that somehow makes your teeth feel fuzzy. The crow lands on a nearby branch and watches tilting its head. Sen opens one eye. The bird's helpful. Brings me ideas. Your cousin leans over and whispers, "Should we be worried?" You shake your head. Maybe, but maybe not. Sen's weirdness isn't just weirdness. It's focused, intentional. Like he sees things you don't. He once predicted a rainstorm by licking a rock and then stared at the sky until the first drop fell. He's been banned from touching the cooking stones because he enhanced one with river clay and nearly smoked everyone out. But for all his eccentricities, Sen has his place. No one mocks him openly. Even the elders treat him with a wary sort of respect, like he might accidentally summon something useful, or terrifying, or both. You've heard whispers that he once helped heal a sick dog using crushed leaves and a chant, that he found a spring no one else could see, that he dreams in symbols and speaks in questions. Historians still debate the role of such children in early societies. Were they marked for special roles, trained by someone older stranger, just as misunderstood? Or did they carve their own path, pushing the edges of knowledge until they found something that stuck? You think about your own learning, scraping hides, throwing spears, making cord, and how different Sen's path seems. Not better, not worse, just sideways. Later that day, you catch him whispering to a small pile of stones. You listen. He's naming them, each one. You ask him why. They remember better that way, he replies, dead serious. You walk away, but that night, you whisper a name to your own lucky pebble, just in case. The next morning, Sen gives you a bundle of herbs tied with twine. For when you feel cold inside, he says. You stare at it. Thanks. He nods. Don't burn it on a Wednesday, it argues. You nod back as if that clears everything up. It doesn't. But you tuck it into your pouch anyway. Because even in the Stone Age, when everything is practical and physical, and survival is the first order of the day, there's still space for the weird. The dreamers, the ones who see faces in trees and names in stones. And sometimes, the world feels a little wider because of them. So when Sen tells you the moon is watching your dreams tonight, you don't laugh. You just pull your blanket tighter and nod to the sky. You notice it first in the way she ties her hair. Not practical, like the rest of you, twisted back with a strip of hide or jammed under a cap of woven reeds. No, hers is plaited with small feathers and one bright bead that must have come from a trader's pouch. And suddenly, she's not just your cousin's friend with the good slingshot technique, she's someone. You're confused by the feeling. Not frightened exactly, but definitely baffled. Your stomach feels odd. Your palms sweat when she's near, and you keep saying things that don't make any sense. At one point, you try to impress her by showing off your spear-throwing form, only to slip land flat and invent a new bruise. Welcome to your first Stone Age crush. Nobody explains this part to you. There's no class on what to do when your heart won't behave. You just find yourself trailing behind her slightly more than necessary, laughing at her jokes a beat too loudly, and offering her the less moldy berries like some prehistoric Romeo with a basket of semi-edible love tokens. She accepts them with a shrug, which in this culture is practically a proposal. You're not alone in this. Around the camp, a quiet shift is happening. Kids your age are becoming something else. Taller, louder, smellier. There are glances, giggles, slightly more dramatic arguments. The sort of accidental shoulder bumps that could easily escalate into full-on flirtation or very awkward wrestling. Mainstream anthropologists believe that puberty in the Stone Age brought subtle shifts in roles. Older children started mimicking adult behaviors, watching the hunters more closely, joining the elders during council fires, experimenting with courtship rituals that involved everything from ceremonial dancing to the tender gift of a dead rodent. Historians still argue whether romantic pairings were decided by family, by the group, or just by whoever could run the fastest. Because yes, flirting here might involve racing. You challenge her to one. A dash from the stream to the standing stone and back. She grins, accepts, and promptly destroys you. She runs like the wind, with laughter trailing behind her like a ribbon. You're halfway through your huffing when she saunters back and flicks water in your face. This is unbearable, and also kind of thrilling. Your cousin notices your behavior immediately, because of course she does. She starts dropping heavy hints. Why are you staring at her gourd collection? And should I ask her to marry your spear? She thinks she's hilarious. You consider throwing a fish at her. Later, you try a different tactic, crafting a small gift. A smooth stone, decorated with red ochre lines, wrapped in a scrap of fur. It's modest, personal, potentially allergic, depending on the fur. You leave it near her sleeping mat and pretend to know nothing. The next day, she's wearing it as a bracelet. You almost explode. Romance here is simple and complicated at once. There's no dating, no texts, no flowers, unless you happen to find one that doesn't immediately wilt. Affection is shown in shared food, shared chores, shared silences. You help her carry a bundle of firewood, and she doesn't call you weak. That's basically love. But it's not all glowing embers and giggles. There's another boy in the camp, taller, louder, with impressively braided hair, and an annoying habit of always having food. He starts hovering too, offers her a carved spoon. It's a nice spoon. You hate it. You don't fight him. That's not your style. Instead, you spend a few days sulking near the water, throwing pebbles, and muttering about how you never liked feathers anyway. Your cousin rolls her eyes so hard, you're surprised they stay in her head. Eventually, it passes. Not the feeling, but the storm of it. You realize she's still your friend, still laughs at your jokes, still asks you to help her find fat grubs for bait. And maybe that's enough. Maybe here that is love, soft and steady, and made of small things. A quirky tidbit for the romantically inclined: some Stone Age burial sites show signs of joint burials, side-by-side skeletons with intertwined tools or matching ornaments. Some interpret these as early signs of partnership, maybe even proto-marriage. Others think it was just about convenience. But you like to believe it meant something, that even then people wanted to be near each other. In life and after. One evening, she sits beside you at the fire. Neither of you speaks much. You pass her a bit of dried meat. She passes you a flat stone that's warm from her palm. You say, "Nice race the other day." She shrugs. "I let you win." You both know she didn't, but you smile anyway. Because sometimes, even in the age of stone and smoke hearts, are tender things. The deer doesn't fall right away. You've seen hunts before. Watch the older ones vanish into the hills at dawn and return dust-covered and blood-smudged, triumphant, or at least unmaimed. But today is different. Today, you're going with them. You don't sleep the night before. Too restless. You lie on your back, watching the stars, gripping your spear tight enough to leave marks on your palm. Your cousin curled beside you mutters something in her sleep and kicks you. You take it as a blessing. Before the sun climbs, you're up. Everyone moves in silence, tools in hand, eyes steady. No loud chatter, no boasting. Just the slow rhythm of preparation, checking bindings, sharpening flint, smearing faces with ash and earth. You do the same, though your smear ends up more mud mustache than fierce warrior. No one laughs. The path is steep and narrow. You move like shadows across the ridge feet, light ears sharp. A cool wind tugs at your sleeves, bringing the scent of pine and something else, animal musk, distant and promising. The elders split the group. You follow your uncle and two others, circling toward a rise where deer have been seen. You crouch, belly to ground, heart rattling like a drum. Every sound feels loud. Every breath feels borrowed. Then movement, a flicker of tawny hide, antlers like crooked branches. A young stag just beyond the tree line grazing, unaware. Beautiful. You ready your spear. There's a signal, a soft hiss. Two others move, left you inch forward, flanking. The deer lifts its head. Ears twitch. Your muscles tense. and then it bolts. Chaos. The chase is on feet, thudding shouts, flying spears raised. You sprint like the wind's at your back. The deer veers, wrong-footed stumbles. A spear finds its mark. Not yours, not yet, but the blow is enough. The deer falters. Then you're there close enough to see the breath catch in its throat. You throw. It's instinct more than skill, and it hits, not perfectly, but enough. The deer drops. Silence. Then cheers loud and sudden. Hands on your back. Your uncle grinning proud and muddy. You stand there, panting, overwhelmed, staring at the animal that was a ghost a moment ago and is now real, still warm. You help with the work, cutting, carrying blood on your hands, and no one rushes you away. You're part of it now. Fully. Historians agree that participation in the hunt marked a turning point in a child's life. Not just in skill, but in standing. You've crossed a line. You're not the same. And historians still argue whether this kind of milestone was formalized with ritual or simply recognized by nods and meat shared by firelight. Today, you get the nod, and the meat, and a place at the front when you return. The camp greets you with noise and laughter. Someone smears blood on your cheek and calls it war paint. Your cousin lifts your hand and announces, "Didn't even cry." You didn't? Not until later. Because when night falls and the stars crowd close again, and the fire crackles with the smell of roast meat and smoke and pride, you lie back and feel it, the shift. You are no longer a passenger. You are part of the tribe. And you know, this will be a story they tell. One day maybe you'll be the one telling it. Now the fire's low, just embers softly glowing in the ash. Around you, quiet breath rises and falls. The others sleep, curled under hides' heads, resting on bundles of grass and fur. The dog snores gently at your feet. Even the crow perched nearby has tucked its head under its wing. You lie on your back hands, folded over your chest, eyes tracing the constellations you still don't know the names of. But they're familiar now. Like old friends, the day has left you bone-tired. Not the sharp ache of illness or panic, but the deep, satisfying weariness of having done something that matters. You feel it in your arms, in your feet, in the slow way your thoughts tumble now, softer, slower, more distant. The camp is still, safe. The kind of stillness that wraps around you like a blanket. The kind that says you're home. You belong. You think of the hair you skinned, the games you played, the dreams you dreamt while sweating out the snake, the friend who names stones, the girl who races faster than your heart, and the deer, the moment you stopped being a child and became something else, a person with purpose, a person with a story. So now, as the darkness thickens and the stars lean closer, let yourself drift. Breathe. Let the quiet of the Stone Age hold you. You're warm, you're full, you're safe. Sleep well, little hunter. Your tribe watches over you.